Great, thank you. I'll call to order the Thursday, September 16th, 2021 meeting of the Town of North Andover Community Preservation Committee. I'll read our preamble, which at some point we'll get to stop reading, I'm sure. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted via remote means. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning to Comcast Channel 8, Verizon Channel 26, or online at www.northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, for reasons of economic hardship, and despite best efforts, we'll post on the town website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. If the public would like to participate in the public meeting, please email your questions or comments prior to or during the meeting to dbeckley, that's D-B-E-C-K-L-E-Y, at northandoverma.gov. The question or comment will be provided to the committee before the meeting or read during the proceedings if received during or shortly before the meeting. So, with that, I'll move to our roll call. I'm going to start with our newest member, Tim Scheihart. I knew I was going to screw it up. Scheihart, I apologize. Terry Holland.
Here.
Bill Callahan.
Here.
Rick Green.
Here.
Tracy Watson.
Here, remote.
CJ Ganji.
Here.
And Dan Beckley, our staff support.
I'm here.
Great. Okay. First order of business, meetings from our last meeting, July 1st, 2021. Can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion approved by Tracy. Seconded by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I have it as unanimous. Thank you very much. You cannot vote, correct. You were not present. That's right. Tim did not vote. Next order of business, we're going to new business discussion, which is kind of a broad agenda item to discuss some of the potential projects that we may be hearing about. I can probably go first. I did have a meeting with the town manager today, discuss a few of the things that she was hearing and she was anticipating. First is the Calzetta Farm property, which is adjacent to the Sergeant School, for those of you who are aware of it. There is an interest by the family to dispose of the property and see it go to the town, is our understanding. So that is one that we do expect to come forward at some point this year. In what form that takes is still to be determined as to who the applicant is and who's going to come before us, but that is one that's definitely on the radar. I know, Terry, you've had some discussions with them as well. I'm not sure if there's anything else that you want to add to it.
No, Melissa did say to me that you should approach it with somebody else. Did she talk to you about that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, we did. Yep. Yeah. So I think she'd like Andrew Shapiro to
Right.
make contact with them. So I passed along that contact information, and that hopefully will keep things moving in the right direction. Tracy, did you have any comments on Calzetta?
No, just that I personally think I'm hoping that something comes to fruition with that land, for sure.
Great.
I'm thrilled that their first thought is the town, as opposed to private development. So fingers crossed it moves in the right direction.
Agreed. A few other potential projects that came out from my meeting with Melissa. She mentioned the Stevens Estate, the painting in the front stairwell of the Stevens Estate, I think came to us maybe 2 years ago at this point. It looks like they've done some further homework, and they're expecting to come forward with a restoration plan for that painting for a project. I'm told it won't be able to leave the building just because of its size. They're going to have to come up with a new method for figuring that out, but that's in process, which would be great to get that one moving. There is some talk about a potential for a fields master plan. Terry or Rick, I don't want to step on your toes if you guys are more aware of this than I, but similar to the playground master plan, but perhaps doing a study or a needs assessment early on to figure out what fields need maintenance, what fields need improvement, and where maybe new fields need to be built. So if either of you have any insight as to where they may stand to know?
I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
It hasn't discussed
I've
with
got
us.
contacted by the master planning facilities plan just in terms of updates for the fields. but
Okay.
That's been about it.
Yeah, I think the thought behind it is there's such a broad project that maybe it does deserve, more of
Yeah.
a multi-year plan phase and what role CPC can play in that, so.
Yeah, and the pavement too, the parking, I think like the cute thing right now is like some of those driveways, like Sharpener's Pond, Foster Fields, parking lots are like, you're pretty much gonna scrape the bottom of your car.
Right,
in those.
or blow a tire.
Yeah.
We actually discussed those in our last fields maintenance meeting with the deputy town manager. So I think you probably might see a project for design fees for at least Foster Field.
Okay,
Sharpners is a little bit more difficult because of the wetlands,
Yeah.
and I think trying to pave the parking lot would be very unlikely
Right.
because of the proximity of the wetlands, but
Yeah.
there is definitely some need for improvements down there. I was just down there last week, and it's a rough surface.
is the plan to not pave most of the parking because of just ongoing maintenance or initial cost, or
Well,
both?
I think like in the terms of McAvoy and other fields, and actually on Dale Street too, Town Farm Athletic Field, they needed for pervious area
Okay,
to drain.
okay,
Ideally, it would be nice to pave them all because it's less maintenance.
all right,
I know that McAvoy, the entrance and the exit is continual potholes, and because of just cars going in and washing it out, but
yeah.
It seems like they pave in a little further, but the pothole just changes.
Yeah.
it just carries in, yeah.
It's Reynolds, it's Town Fire, it's all of them.
Reynolds
They get that little pothole, right, that little
Reynolds
bit.
takes a lot of abuse in the winter because they
Yeah.
plow it with a loader.
Oh.
Because the kids go over there to sled.
Right,
So that's, depending upon the severity of the winter,
Right.
kind of dictates what that parking lot's gonna look like.
okay, okay. Well, anyway, that should be, again, obviously, there's a lot to discuss with regards to that, so we should hopefully anticipate a project along those lines. And the last one we discussed, Terry, you've had some discussions, this is the Usler property and potential project coming forward from, I believe it's gonna come from the school to construct cross-country trails and potentially, parking as well on the Usler lot. Depending on how they can figure out, the different uses with Mass Audubon, everything going on with the Stevens Estate, but I think there's a need and a desire to, the cross-country team is losing their home, from what I'm being told. So this could be a potential good solution right down the street, so. I know you spent quite a bit of time out there, Terry, so.
Yeah, it's kind of, but we're at the point where I think that now the coaches and the AD and the Mass Audubon need to get together and figure the best route and where it would start and where it would end, that type of thing. And so it's kind of early to say where anything might go. So we'll let them put it all together, and then they'll put together a proposal for us. But I'm sure we're gonna see a proposal.
Okay, that'd be great.
There's two benefits to that, just so everybody know. Right now, we're out at Harold State Parker. We only get 2 home meets a year, because that's all North Reading will give us for use. We should be having more up around 7, right? So the other thing is, every time we go out there, we have to bus them. So they can't practice out there, because it would be all busing. So they have to run on the streets in town to practice. And then they're almost like the visiting team when they go to their own track, because they
Right.
don't get to practice on it. So.
Right.
So now they'll be able to walk right up the street, go to practice, no busing, and walk right up there to go to a meet or whatever. The opposing team can just park at the school, use the facilities to get ready, and go right up there. So it's really a win-win.
That's great. Good, okay. That was everything that I've
I
heard
just-
about. Tracy, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I just wanted to say, I really appreciate the time, effort, and energy that Terry's put into this. It's huge in regards to the track team, and just that it's right down the street, and it's just, I'm very, very appreciative of again, Terry's efforts, time, and energy, and I like how it's all coming together. So thank you, Terry.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. It's great when there's a nearby solution to an immediate problem, so
Right.
that's terrific. That was everything that I had heard, came out of my discussions with Melissa. I'm not sure if anyone else has heard anything else that's floating out there on, are there any of our old projects that have kicked around? I've heard very little from CRT. I know they were looking to dispose of some of those parcels around the old center, but I haven't heard of any movement on that, if anyone else has.
No.
But, okay. Dan, do you have something?
Yes. So I don't know how many of you were on the committee when this happened, but a few years ago, I think somewhere 2015, 2017 range, a resident, Gene Willis, came before the committee trying to sell undeveloped land that abuts the Ward Reservation near Boston Hill Road. It's one of the biggest unprotected parcels in town. It's about, I think it's 36 acres of contiguous space. And last time it came before the committee, if I understand correctly, there wasn't enough information, and I think there may have been an issue with the appraisal. John would know more about it, and unfortunately isn't here. But anyways, he's opened up conversations again with the town about it, is interested in preserving it. And so I've gone back and forth with him a couple times about the types of information we would expect from him. And he's interested in getting more feedback about it before the actual application, so that it can be considered in more depth. And so I think in one of the upcoming meetings, either October or November, he's interested in coming before the committee to discuss that further.
Yeah, so I was there for that, and there wasn't, we were looking for more. We couldn't find that it connected to anything, so we didn't have a use for it. That was the biggest thing. We were looking, if we owned it, what were we gonna do with it?
Okay.
It didn't really connect to anything, and it wasn't next to any water or anything like that, so we weren't sure why we were gonna purchase it. It was the biggest thing. Now, since then, I think we have purchased a piece of land right next to it for something else. So we were looking to see if Greenbelt had any interest and if they were connected to anything they had or that type of thing. But that was basically where we were at with it, and the price tag on it was pretty high.
Well, setting price aside, was purchasing it just for protection's sake, not?
But protecting it from what? That's the thing.
Is it not developable land?
We buy, it is, but it's very difficult. It's right at the very top of the hill, right behind where Boston's Key Hill would be, so it would be so you would enter from, I think there was some interest of a nursing home or something might have gone there, but then it fell through, but it wasn't really, I'd have to know more about the development end of it. We never saw that, we never saw how it would subdivide, or there was nothing like that. But, but in terms of it protecting the lake or the watershed or anything like that, it wasn't there, and that's mostly what we've always gone after. But I'm thrilled to look at it again. I mean, it's a big piece of land, for sure.
Yeah, it looks like it abuts some trustees' property. Yeah, so, okay. Yeah, I see no reason not to have him in. Dan, if you speak with him again, if you want to maybe get him on for either October or November, I think we'd be happy to discuss it with him.
Yep. Will do.
Great, thank you. Okay, anything else in new business that anyone else is aware of or heard of?
No.
In that regard? Okay, great. Moving on to the next agenda item, election of officers. So I don't think this is something we've necessarily done or dictated in our bylaws in the past, but my thought in having this is that I want to get us to some sort of a regular process and precedent for each year, just to make sure that we kind of, if nothing else, reaffirm what we are or what we're not doing, and I just wanted to get that out there to discuss with the committee and get everyone's thoughts on it. It's like, I guess I'll kind of go around the committee and get everyone's thoughts on how we want to handle, really it's just chair and vice chair, for operating the committee. So not looking to necessarily step down, not looking to do anything like that, but whatever we want to, how we want to handle it going forward. So let's kind of go around if anyone has any thoughts on it.
I mean, I think it's good. I mean, I think one of the things that's good about rotating, having sort of a regular rotation is everyone knows that they're going to be up. So it makes you sort of sit up a little bit. I think it's good to have like a regular rotation, and whether you say it's like going to be 2 years or 3 years, somewhere in that range, because obviously there's a little bit of a learning curve, but also like a little bit more, I think we could also experiment with some other models, like should we kind of say like, hey, the person who's vice chair, would then move into the chair position, or that's kind of a thought that, for that year before they ascend, they're, getting that insight and knowledge and what it takes to do the job, so that, not coming in cold. And then the other idea of just, I think it's really healthy for committee to just keep moving people through, because that makes you focus on the process and like the policies and keep those good, so anyone can just pick it up and go, and you're not kind of saying like, oh, I've never been in this situation before, I don't know, we don't know what to do. It makes you think a little bit differently about everything you approach.
My only thing was, I've been on these committees, not this, I've been here for a while, but I mean, a lot of the sports committees and whatever. And if you don't have some type of an end, nobody wants the job, because you don't know when you're going to get out, So it's kind of like, okay, I can do this for 2 years, or I can do this for 3 years, But knowing that, like, I took it, I was like almost 11 years, and I was begging someone to take it. I was trying to get going, and then right after that, we did put a term limit on it, and people have jumped in now because they know, okay, this point in my life, I could do that, that type of thing. So that's the good part about having a term limit, I think.
Okay. Tracy, you have any thoughts? We've served on a number of these committees.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with Bill. I agree with Terry. In particular, in Terry's position, yeah, he was begging for someone to please take over, because it can become, really, really heavy. I agree with Bill in the respect that, if you think your time for leadership is coming up, yeah, you might sit a little straighter in the chair. And then you may, have some of us that are like, yeah, I want no part of leadership ever. But I always do believe that it's healthy to turn over leadership of any committee, any board, anything along those lines. I think it's a healthy thing to make sure that we turn it over. Do we put in specific term limits? I don't know if I'm necessarily on board with that. I think personally right now, Brian, you're great, and I would like to see you continue in the chairman role. But I do think it's something that should be discussed every year. And, some folks may be afraid to throw their hat in the ring because, I don't know, silly, but things become political even on a wonderful committee like this. And so I'm definitely with Bill. I hear where Terry's coming from. And there will always be people on a committee that want to give of their time, effort, and energy, but never want a leadership role. So I think we should at least discuss it regularly every year. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you, Trace. Yeah, I mean, just speaking, from my position right now, I hear what Tracy's saying, and that some people want to be good members, good contributors, and maybe don't want to obviously have the extra, oomph that it may take. So I don't know that I would be fully on board with saying, everyone's going to get a shot, or a term. I mean, by the time it rotates through, some people's terms may expire and people come and go. And but I do agree, like I think I said at the beginning, that at least a reaffirmation of, hey, we're all on board. We're all on board with, leadership as currently constituted. And let's move forward for the next year. And we have a process that, on whether it's the first or second meeting every year, we either take nominations or we don't, or we go forward with it. At least it's some sort of process that we're all comfortable with, that we don't really have bylaws that govern it for us. I mean, we're not that big of a committee that I think it warrants it, but at least that we have a process that we can fall back on and say, here's how we operate, here's how we choose our leadership. So, but. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that I think, we're a different type of committee. we deal with millions of dollars every year, and we're unelected. And I think, and Bill, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think probably what Bill is striving for, I know I'm striving for in this committee, is that we never kind of entrench someone where, going that they're so entrenched that somehow along the way they think the millions of dollars that we spend, are their millions of dollars to spend. I think it's just, and Bill, again, correct me if I'm wrong in what you're thinking, but it's more that, we're here to spend the taxpayer dollars in the best way we can for the benefit of the entire community. And sometimes that means not having one leader for a long, long time, but rotating folks out so that, we're always doing the right thing by the community. If that makes sense, I don't know.
I think so.
Yeah, and I think it's the transparency and accountability, so that so we're getting a bunch of different people in front of the Board of Selectmen, that, we get people in front of, we build up that, level of trust and respect with the Finance Committee and stuff, so that when we go to them and say, hey, these are our proposals for the year, they know that we've done a thorough job sort of vetting it, and we've been pretty public, and we're in front of a lot of these committees, so that I think we increase the visibility too. I think that's a big part of it as well. I mean, as we've always said, people only know that there's a little footnote in their tax bill about CPC, and that's when they, find out about it. And it's a heavy lift to get people engaged. And the thing is just, you gotta be really transparent. You gotta be out there and, put a lot of time in. And I think, the more people we rotate through, the deeper those relationships will be across the whole community. And we'll probably see benefits, because we'll, all of us have our own personal networks. You talk to someone at a soccer game or, or somewhere, and you strike up a conversation, and they're like, oh, I see how my organization or something I'm interested fits in this. And, that's when people start putting in applications, and we get, good projects.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so how do you guys want to proceed? You want to table this? I mean, till next meeting? How do you?
Good right now, because, I mean, we're not looking at any time frame or anything for this year, right? I mean, so, unless you want to.
I would like to, I mean, it's easy, but we're always happy with the status quo. It's kind of easy to kick the can. I think what I would like to do is, and we don't have to do it tonight, but at least have, what we're going to say, this is going to be our process every year. And maybe someone puts forward a proposal, it doesn't have to be tonight, maybe we do it for next meeting, of whether it's term limits or a rotation, or vice ascends to chair after a period of time, whatever it may be. I think if we come forward with something maybe, a little bit more concrete that we can, bandy about and discuss for October, figure out how we're going to operate this year. There's no reason to delay it, and let's just set that structure in place for future committees, because we never know what's going to happen. People may have things may happen. People may come off the committee on.
Yep.
And we've had a lot of turnover just in the few years that I've been here. So I think we set to.
Probably a good idea to come up with some variations in process and discuss those at the next meeting. And
Yeah.
Hey, Brian, are you looking for input
Yeah, I
on
like
this
that.
before the next meeting?
I would like input for next meeting. So yeah. So if we could, kind of take the whole of the discussion that we've just had, say, you know what, let's think about a couple of different ideas. If we want to vote on a subcommittee tonight to kind of come back with a proposal to the committee, I'm okay with that too. If someone wants to put together a handful of ideas, and if anyone wants to volunteer to put their heads together and come back and say, here's a couple of proposals we can then vote on in the October meeting.
No,
Does
I mean, I think,
Does that work?
like, what could we, I'm trying to just think of how you do this, with public meeting law and everything, right? Like, what makes sense is everyone, if we, come to the next meeting with a bunch of different proposals that we've had time to sort of read, we can put, some language up on the screen and sort of
Yep.
workshop it a little bit. That might sort of work, right? Like, because we'll probably have a bunch of different stuff, and obviously when you sit down to write it, it makes you clarify your thinking and sort of think it all through.
Right, well, I don't think we're in any violation of any open meeting law if two folks, so I'm going to point you and Tim, and just say, okay, if you guys were to kind of put your heads together offline and say, okay, let's come up with option A, B, and C, or one comprehensive option that we'll present to the committee
Right.
in October, then we can then discuss it,
Yeah, okay.
amend it accordingly as a group and decide, this is how we want to move forward.
I'm
Yeah.
good with that, Brian.
If that's okay, I don't want to volunteer you guys for that, but I mean, that's
No,
kind of
no,
what
no,
I'm thinking.
Yeah, I can't lead yet.
No, that's,
By the way,
you've got-
you know my background, right? Finance committee?
yep.
Okay, so.
Yep. Got ideas, and we're happy to have them, or whoever's,
Sure.
if you're okay with that, Bill.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I'd like to interject, and I know it's weird, I'm on the phone, and I apologize if I'm interrupting inappropriately.
No,
I also don't want to overthink it. I don't want to make it more complicated than it needs to be. I think at the end of the day, most of us are just just want to make sure that we don't have, going forward, we're all spectacular people, but there could be, a rogue person down the road or something. I just think leadership should be addressed annually. And again, I agree with you, Brian. Let's discuss it further at length in October. But I also don't want to overkill it.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
completely agree. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else anyone wants to say on the topic?
And the only thing I wanted to add is, and we can bring it up for more discussion at next meeting, but forcing some people into leadership roles is probably not the greatest idea, because you may discourage some people from wanting to join this committee in the future. Some people, like you said, are excellent workers. They produce great things, but they don't want to step up and take that leadership role. So some people might be hesitant in the future to join that committee, and probably kind of keeping it loose.
Agreed.
Not a bad idea.
It's and again, we won't beat the horse. We'll talk about it next month. But then you're on that fine line. Okay, well, if you do have that one go-getter, and everyone else kind of moves back a little bit, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
then it becomes
No, I
something.
agree
So,
with you. I
it's-
mean, like Tracy said, a discussion of the leadership for the year annually is a great idea.
I would say at a minimum that we should be doing that. Okay. Okay. Thank you. We'll all right. We'll move on next to the financial report, which should be in everyone's packet. Did you not get that, Tim?
No,
Okay. So there's
everywhere.
so it's usually in the link in the invite from Jillian.
Yep.
There'll be a link to a Google Drive which has all of the information for the meeting will all be right in there. So you'll find the minutes and project balances. We don't need to really go into too much detail. I don't know if anyone reviewed it or had any questions about any of the projects. I will say this summer, we've had some movement on Stevens Library. We've had movement at Ridgewood. I think there's been some disbursement forms I've signed on most of those. So not a ton of activity happens, since our last meeting, really. But if anyone has any questions on that or wants to review it, we can, certainly say anything specific we can discuss next week or next month.
My thing is just some of the projects that haven't moved, why? So like the library project and things like that, I'd like to have somebody answer some questions on why some of the projects aren't moving.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's usually,
I
maybe
would
that's
say
something to put on the agenda. Maybe we ask for a status, we're supposed to get quarterly updates,
Correct.
right? And I think it's probably more rare that we get an update,
I think there are certain applicants who are really, really good about it and
Yeah.
others who are not.
you know? So maybe we just say, like, in November, if we don't have, you know, maybe we line up in October and say, you know, where haven't we heard anything? And we say, you know, we reach out through staff or whomever and say, like, okay, and in November, everybody's got to sort of pipe up and say, you know, what their status is and what they're doing. You know, and then if not, they get an invite to the December meeting, you know, as a bonus.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, does town staff send reminders quarterly with the forms that need to be filled out to everyone that should be reporting to us? And I only ask because I act in, you know, 2 other communities. I'm a recipient of community preservation funds, and they send me, they remind me, and I fill it out and I send it in. I just don't know if we're doing that.
So I don't know what the practice has been in past years, but for the projects that were approved at this most recent town meeting, in those grant agreements, I believe the agreements have always said you need to report quarterly. We expanded upon that to include the types of information we expect to hear quarterly, as well as who the report should go to, which is me, and I will add it to agendas when they come in. But I also made that clear in communications with the projects that I've
Right,
spoken
you sent
to.
out a quarterly reminder. It's due by July.
And so, so once the first quarter for those projects come up, I will certainly remind them, and I'll track down the other active projects.
Yeah,
we
so
can talk
maybe
more
we
about
should
that.
just, you know, make that, for someone like myself, you know, I'm running 2 different housing authorities. I'm dealing with 2 different community preservation committees. I can't tell if, I don't know what I'm hearing.
No, we're hearing you, Tracy.
Oh, okay, sorry. So I deal with 2 different communities, 2 different community preservation. They remind me because in truth, I forget. So maybe we could just set up a calendar where we're shooting out to the folks with the form and it comes back and then we know what's up and they know what's up.
Yeah, Dan, is that a quarterly basis for when the project was approved, or is it our quarterly calendar? So that everyone gets on the same schedule?
I don't know. I'll look at I would assume it's quarterly from when the project is approved. Another thing that we come back to this another time, but another issue is that in the past, and mainly this is an issue for me because I don't know everybody, but in the past, applications haven't required an email contact, and so I don't have contact information for every past project. But that's certainly something I can work on, tracking information down. But I am going to make it a habit of quarterly reminding everyone that they need to submit reports.
Okay, yeah, Dan, it's just if you run through and you find, you know, maybe a handful list of projects you don't have a contact for, let them get it over to me, and I'll help siphon that out, and we'll figure out how to get the right contacts from everybody.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not trying to add to your plate, Dan. I'm sorry.
No problem.
I just know it does fall on us more than them, unfortunately. Thank you.
Everything should have been approved in July, right? I mean, it starts in July, so no matter when it's approved, town meeting, it all starts July, whatever. So it should be, we should all be on the same
Still
time.
on the same schedule, you're right, correct. Yeah, so like I said, you know, I've seen. Right, you all right, Bill? Ooh, excitement.
I did a long 50-mile bike ride today. Sorry.
All right.
You were slipping away.
Well, Rick's up for CPR duty,
Yeah.
so not me. Yeah, so again, I've seen a handful of the ones that have come in, but you're right. There are a number of projects that we probably don't get what we need to get. So we'll get that cleaned up. You know, Dan will have it on next month's agenda. All right. Great. Next on our list is the Community Preservation Coalition dues. This came in to us the day after our last meeting. Otherwise, we would have voted on it back in July. So So everyone's aware, the Community Preservation Coalition is an organization comprised of the member communities to support local CPCs, runs the website. It's a resource when we've got questions on applicability of funds and all kinds of things. Plus it markets, or advertises CPA projects, and it's a really good resource. I think we've always been a contributing member of it. I didn't feel right authorizing a $4,000 payment without, the vote of the committee. So the dues for this year are $4,350. They are a sliding scale based on the size of your CPA allocation. So we kind of fall right in the middle of that. So if someone could make a motion for me?
Move to approve expenditure of $4,350 for the Community Preservation Coalition dues.
Thank you, Bill.
Second?
Seconded by both Tim and Rick. All right, I'll do a roll call vote since we are still remote. CJ?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
And Bill?
Yes.
Motion is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Stuart will be appreciative. Okay. Next up is a discussion of the signage program. Rick, I think this is your standing moment in every agenda. If you could give us maybe a quick update on Glennie and just, to update the committee on that.
Yes.
And then maybe we can
No problem.
talk a little bit about the broader signage program that we talked about last year.
So I went through Dan, and we established a purchase order number, so for Dawn Sign Tech. So the sign was finished today. I'm gonna pick it up tomorrow. I did go down to Glennie Wood Lot, and the sign post is in place. So it looks good. Did a nice job on it. It's all pressure treated. So I will hang that sign, and probably by next weekend, I'll take some pictures, and we can look at it for the next meeting. And I guess from that standpoint, we can kind of move forward as to how we want to move forward with the whole sign program for each project, whether we want to just adopt this sign.
So my thought on that is, every project's gonna be
Yeah.
different. The sign you put on a lot
Yeah.
is gonna be different than the sign you put on a school or a building or whatever. So maybe the projects that, when they come forward, part of the application has that they have to purchase the sign.
Yeah,
And
I
that we
think so.
approve the sign at the time we approve the project.
That's a great idea, Terry.
Process-wise and structure-wise, I think it is a great idea. My question becomes, how does the applicant know, are they providing us with a sign rendering at the time? And how do they know how to get that facilitated? If we're gonna approve the sign renderings and all that stuff, or do we give them a suite
So
of pre-approved designs?
I presented like 3 different designs, and granted, we were away from the granite
Right.
bounds right now, but I certainly could work on 3 kind of formats for different, because that's the intent I had before, was that for different types of projects would require different types of signs, so.
Right. So maybe we could give them examples and then they could present, we can accept or not.
Yeah, I
you
think
know.
it's probably in our best interest to develop some sort of sign formats for different projects and give them that information so that they have all the information and tools they need to bring in the rendering.
Okay.
But I think I would put it on them to purchase and install the sign.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think we ran into a
And we
situation.
will approve whatever sign they choose to.
Yeah, I think what happened here is we ran into a situation where Greenbelt allotted $300 total for the sign, and this sign that's gonna be erected is $575, so there's a shortfall there, so.
Right.
I think you're right, Terry, if we incorporate that as part of their application process, we won't have to deal with that anymore, but I think we do owe them some sort of guidelines.
And a guideline with sign type A, you should budget, we can have a generous budget so that they can do it, and there's always left over, because if it's left over, it comes back to us at the end
Yeah.
anyway, so
Yeah.
there's no harm. The only problem is if you go to town meeting and you don't have enough, that becomes an issue.
And Dawn Signtech was very gracious in working with me for the different, so I don't think there'll be an issue there, that they'll be able to give us some renderings.
Dan, is that something we can attach to the application?
Yeah, definitely.
Great. All right, so maybe we'll put that on for next month.
Yep.
And we'll have,
Yep.
something we can give the thumbs up to and be ready for this year. Great. I think it's a good idea, Terry. Okay. Moving right along. Next is, I was approached by Brad Wakeman in, I guess it must have been April or May last year. We're in the throes of getting ready for town meeting, regarding some of, maybe this is more of a new business item, but regarding some of the projects that the North Andover Improvement Society is planning or contemplating in and around the old center. And I thought maybe it makes sense to invite him or other members of the NAIS in for a discussion on what they have planned and if they're bringing forward any projects. So I wasn't sure if, I'm not as familiar with the Improvement Society, if anyone else is, have to discuss it, but otherwise we'll, if everyone's okay, we'll invite them in for a future meeting.
Sure.
That's good.
All right? You guys are easy tonight.
Sounds
All right.
good.
Tracy, did you have something? I'm sorry?
Oh, I said that sounds good.
Good, okay. All right, last agenda item, application process and our schedule. We talked about this, kind of at length at our last meeting last year. I think, Dan, you included a copy of the current application in the package, correct?
Yeah, so what I did was based on our last discussion, and looking at some other towns' applications, included some things into the application. So it's the same format, and I've highlighted things that have been added, more so as a menu of items that can be selected from. I'm not, it's up to you, and I'm not going to, recommend all of these things. You can pick and choose. One thing I will note is I added basically a line where you would ask applicants if they've communicated or notified abutters of a project. Because that came up with the Smolak Farms Trail project, and was something people had mentioned, I believe, in our last meeting too. Not a lot of towns do that, and the ones that do set criteria, like, if you're just preserving something that's already there, maybe, you don't really need to notify people. And so I leave that to you, but also consider, if you're requiring a butter notification, you need to set conditions of how they would do that. Do they need to go through the assessor's office to get a certified mailing list? Can they just walk over to their neighbor's door and tell them what's up? So those are just things that should be considered. I'm happy to answer any questions about what other towns do and things like that, but mainly threw this together for you all to discuss, and I can revise it based on what you decide. And I guess another conversation to have alongside of this is thinking about the schedule for the application process and any review you want to do of projects potentially before the process.
Yeah, why don't we actually take the second part of that first, Dan, because I think that's probably the easiest for us to kind of bite off. Last year, we were early February, I think February 4th. Does that sound right, Dan?
Yeah, it was the first Friday in February, I think, was the due date. We didn't get, I don't know when you typically put applications out, but I know they didn't go out this past year until either end of December or first thing January.
Yeah, I mean, I would love for us to be able to have our applications up and posted on the website by the end of October, following our October meeting. Get those up there as soon as possible. And it looks like the first Friday in February would be the 4th. So that would give us the February meeting to kind of gather them all up, figure out who has to come in. And then we typically do 1 or 2, if necessary, March meetings to meet with applicants. Everyone's still good with that cadence?
Yeah.
What's the calendar
Yep.
for the rest of the committees, the finance committee backing into all of this stuff?
I think that we moved it back, definitely, from years ago. with the intention of we wanted to be able to get to the finance committee and other committees earlier. So our thought was if we had, you know,
Got
that
through March,
if we had through March, we kind of, you know, maybe we vote in March, and then we have April, and then, you know, usually May town meeting. We usually have April to sort of socialize the projects with the other committees and gain support, so.
Yeah, this year was a little screwy with town meeting being pushed back and all that, obviously. I'm just gonna look at the kind of the schedule, but that has, I mean, that's kind of been our schedule since I've been on, so I think it's worked out. It's given us enough time. And I think the feeling was to not, I think I heard people loud and clear at our last meeting to not pull the application deadline forward at all into
Yeah.
January, right? If I'm correct on that?
No, and I think like the other thing too is, you know, we have a requirement for a public meeting, and if we do that, say, and like, I think advertising the beginning, advertising that we're open for business and we're taking applications is something that we always haven't been great at, you know? Like a real sustained push to say, hey, the applications are out, get them in. We love to have, you know, I think that's important to say, like, hey, we love to have people show up in December and say, I want to put an application together. I want it to be good. You know, what should I be thinking about? Because I think that part of the dialogue is usually very fruitful, you know, and so we don't get an application, you know, especially if you get an application late and we say, oh, let's try to shoehorn it in because it's only once a year and so forth, then we're asking questions that it may take a couple weeks to run down on the tail end of the process. So I think, you know, making a push to, you know, get that out in October, but also do a public meeting in, you know, say our public meeting is in November, and, you know, do a little bit more advertising and see if we can get a speaker in or something, you know, to gin up a little interest.
I think one of the things we kicked around as well was potential mailer to folks, or we still
Yeah,
thinking
putting it
about-
in with the, we did talk about that, with the
Yeah.
quarterly tax bill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The other thing we put in the newsletter with that, right? And I was thinking, it's kind of off the subject, but now that you brought it up, just a CPC line item that we could, on a regular basis, have. So even if we don't have anything current, maybe we can remind them of a trail that we've paid for, that we have access to, or something that we're, you know, to let them know what we've done, so that we're always kind of promoting ourselves in that letter. It may not be something current, we can take something from the past and let them know the playgrounds were all funded by blah, 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 and this year and that year, and I just think it should be a constant reminder.
Yeah. Yeah, your tax dollars at work.
Right.
Here's, you know,
Sure.
it's, you know, only 4 times a year, whatever it is, it comes out.
Exactly.
Yeah, here's what it was used for. Dan, is that something you can kind of check into? I'm not even sure who to go to with that to kind of work that into the process. that-
Getting it in the newsletter, with the tax bill, or yep,
Or
no.
even just within the tax bill itself, just I think like Terry mentioned, just you know, CPC's always got at least a sentence in there of, this year we funded X number of dollars for this project, or a reminder, applications are, you know, posted live on the website, come to our, you know, November meeting with, you know, for an open house.
Yep. I can definitely look further into that.
Great,
Yep, definitely.
okay. All right, so, so again, getting back to schedule, I think right now, and we can vote on this next month if we want, when we get the application all tightened up. I think we're looking at February 4th as a Friday, which would give us enough time to get through it. Because our next meeting would then be the 10th if we hold the second Thursday every month, so. Everybody good with that?
I say we just vote on it. I think we're
All right.
ready to vote, right?
Okay. All right.
So,
make a
real
motion.
quick,
Yep, Dan?
just another thing to consider. I don't know if you want to have the public hearing during a regular meeting, or if you want that to be a separate thing. It's, of course, fine to have it during a regular meeting. I just wanted to make sure.
I know in the past, up until we've done meetings at the Stevens Estate, is that even still an option for us anymore?
I think that would be a lot tougher now.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I was just thinking, about, does that get more people to show up, but,
You know, I mean.
No, it doesn't?
We provided food, and we had all kinds of speakers, and we got very few people turned out. It was kind of disappointing.
okay, then let's not go through the extra effort and expense in that sense, so.
Yeah, I would. I'm with Terry. We
Okay.
tried to make a big to-do, and nobody came.
Most of us go to that.
Right, you're hiring seat fillers to come, and people already know us, okay.
One of the six that showed.
Oh, and I begged them.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. We get the selectmen, we get the finance committee, all right, we know all you people. All right, well, someone will make a motion then.
Move
On
to
the-
set Friday, February 4th is the deadline for CPC applications for fiscal year '23.
Second that.
Made by Bill, seconded by Rick. All right, I'll do the roll call. CJ?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Terry? Tim?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
And Bill?
Yes.
It is unanimous. Okay, February 4th, that's the due date. Great. And we'll
Great.
hold the rest of our schedule from there. All right, so application process, getting back to, kind of the meatier part of this now. In everyone's packet, you should have a copy of the current application as well as the checklist that Dan put together. Has everyone reviewed this enough to adopt, or do you guys feel like you need more time?
I'm good with it.
Everyone's
I think it's fine.
okay.
So I do want to clarify that again, it's not complete. There are you can accept it as is, but there's still a blank space for what the criteria is for notifying abutters and how you would like people to do that. So there's at least
but
that
wouldn't
as a
that be?
Do you want to go through it, Brian, or the highlighted ones?
I was just going to say, wouldn't I was under the assumption that that was kind of like a blank section because we're bound by, I don't know what legislative rule, whatever it is, that how you notify abutters is already kind of already laid out how we have to do that. No?
So I don't think it is because you're not actually approving the project. And so you're not actually reviewing a project that's being permitted. I can look more into that. But I would think since it's just because you're not actually reviewing the project, you're just discussing whether or not you will recommend the funding for it, that I don't think you're bound to.
Oh, I see what you mean.
whatever-
So we're not
whatever
like bound to the same rules as like the planning board or whatever.
We're not a
Right,
permanent,
right.
we're not permitting authority, so.
Right.
But right,
And so-
not being authority, but couldn't we just follow that? I don't know. That could be very
You know.
expensive for us too. So I don't know.
Well, I think it's actually kind of a good idea because the time to hear from the abutters, it would be great to hear from the abutters at town meeting when we're doing the project, when we're going to approve the project, as opposed to
Yeah.
the project gets approved, and then the abutters come out and say like, this hasn't been sort of fully vetted.
Well, the project gets
You know.
funded, and then it still has to get permitted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
so they do have that process. I mean, wonder if we don't simplify it a little bit to simply say, as one of our questions in the application process, can you provide evidence of support in the immediate neighborhood?
Right.
Is that vague enough?
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know. I don't know about that.
Okay.
And I only say that because the playgrounds, for instance. What are we now going door to door? Do you want a new playground? I don't necessarily. I think it would be it falls more on our committee to notify abutters, similar to the planning board or zoning. I would just adopt what they do, opposed to putting it on the applicant's shoulders.
I thought you were actually going the other way, Tracy, because that kind of made sense to me to say like, hey, the Community Preservation Committee has recommended these 5 projects, and so any project that has abutters, and they'll be and so the notice would be, hey, abutter, this project was approved to be on the warrant at town meeting, if
Right.
come to town meeting and say your piece. You could say, hey, this is great.
Yes.
I really looking forward to a new playground, or like, no, this is not favorable.
That, no,
hear that
that's
before
exactly
town
what I'm
I
saying.
think
Maybe
you
I
want to
didn't
hear that
say
before. If it goes
it, but
through all
that's
our processes.
exactly what I'm saying, Bill. I agree.
Yeah, I think that's something we'd want to hear at the meeting, though, wouldn't it be, Tracy? Before we go
yeah.
through all the motions of doing it all, you know?
Yeah.
Do you want to,
Yeah, that's
I'm just throwing out
that too.
But not every project,
needs.
it is a little different though, because it's not like the planning board where we say like, tonight we're going to vote on these. The planning board has obviously it's a very different committee, but they'll be saying, on this address, we're going to vote on this permitting plan on this date. And we've always been a lot more, loose because, we might not have all the information the first night. It depends on when the people can get in. I do think that's a good point, that it'd be good to hear about the abutters, during the application process, but it's hard,
It's not
what
going
are
to
you
be applicable
saying?
for every project.
Yeah.
What if we adopted something of a hybrid, in the sense of anything that has to do with land, purchasing of land, or mostly everything we do is land.
Right,
Oh.
playgrounds would fall into that, I would
Yeah.
think.
Or we adopt something where we are notifying abutters of every project prior to our meeting where we vote to support or not support. I don't know. I think my main thing, I'm not sure the way to go, but my main thing is I'm not sure that it's, for most of the things that come before us, do we really want to put this additional weight on our applicants, or does it belong on us? I'm not sure.
So on the playground projects, they put a robocall out to the neighborhood and asked who wanted to be on the design committee or show up. So the neighborhood was notified prior to the start of the playground.
Right, and that was the applicant who took that under right, which is the town, right, but so.
But the applicants was the town.
Right, but it wasn't CPC
No.
who was doing that.
No.
That's my point, so.
But
Would it not behoove to at least have a listing of what we do with it? Listing of the abutters and what we do with it is a different matter. At least you have a couple things. One, you could notify, but two, you have evidence that something has been, at least attention has been made to who your abutters are and those properties you plan on purchasing. What you do with it could be anything different. You could do a email to them maybe, or a phone call to them. But I'm just throwing it out.
So ask the abutters to provide ask the applicant to provide an abutter list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are your abutters?
And then
Yeah, I don't have a
go through
problem
the
with that.
projects and say like, this is, these projects rise to the level where the abutters are going to be affected, enough that they should be contacted.
So just to keep us nimble enough, if we were to have something along the lines in the application that says, we're going to ask you to provide an abutter list. Maybe we have to set some criteria, everyone within 100 feet of your project, right? And I think the assessor's department can do that for us, or do that for an applicant. The committee reserves the right to notify these abutters of its intent to review your application.
Yeah.
Is that way, there may be some we'll look at and say, yeah, all right, no problem here.
It's pretty vague.
We're not obligated to do it, but maybe when we say, you know what, we really kind of want to make sure we hear from the neighbors in this one, we're going to send out a mailer.
Yeah, I think
That's
Okay.
an
I
happy
like
museum.
that.
That works?
That's fine.
I like it.
Yeah, that's good.
Great.
I can make that change.
Great. Thanks, Dan.
Easy enough.
All right, so while we're on Dan's application checklist, were there anything else that anyone wanted to adjust on that? I think it's pretty straightforward of just kind of how we are reviewing a project. And we've been talking about this for a long time. Of every time we have an application, is it checking these boxes? And I think there's nothing on here that I think I would remove or add unless anyone else has anything.
No, it's pretty complete.
Okay. I think, again, a lot of this, I think we've been doing kind of intuitively anyway, but it's good to have this documented. All right, so if we move over to the application, and that Dan, that checklist won't be attached to the application, correct, or will it?
I mean, I don't think that I didn't really have an intent for that.
Okay.
You had just asked for a checklist.
That's fine.
It covers the application, and I think that could either be you use it to internally review the applications, or the applicant uses it to personally make sure they checked all the boxes. But I think all those points are covered in the application already, so it doesn't need to be submitted with it. But that's also up to you guys.
Great, as long as the applicant understands that this is the kind of the sheet we'll be using to grade an application on, I think that's fair.
Dan, you don't mean to include 2022 in there, do you?
Are you looking at our fiscal year? Yeah,
Yeah, I can
update that.
update that if it needs.
The finance guy.
That's the finance
yeah.
guy. Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have any other changes or adjustments you'd like to see? So I think we'd remove that blank one, Dan, that says, does this project involve blank?
Yep.
Right, okay. And maybe we just put a disclaimer at the end of the application like we talked about.
Sounds good.
All right.
And then what is that on the next line? Please provide supporting evidence for land that is privately held. What's that mean? Or
Is public access to the project guaranteed?
I get that part, but
Yeah.
then the second one, I'm like, I don't understand the.
Well, that would have been.
You're right. There's a word missing there or something.
Like a deed.
Yeah, provide supporting evidence for that there will be public access for land that is privately held, something like that. I'll
Yeah, I
update
think
that too.
I
Yeah, just
understand that this, I think, gets back to the small lake application, right? It's going to be still privately owned. By what mechanism will the public access be guaranteed?
Okay.
Is I think
Okay.
that's
that
how
makes
I'm
more
reading
sense.
that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So in that instance, if for whatever reason we agree to a project on private land, I would expect that an applicant come forward with, all right, here's a proposed easement agreement, or here's a
Yeah.
proposed
Yeah.
access agreement.
So it's more. It's almost like, how is public access to the project guaranteed?
Correct. Yeah, I think that's fair, yeah.
You know.
And please provide additional, I'd like them to know, at least at some point, that, hey, you're going to have to provide us with, at least a framework, even if it's a letter of intent, of here's how an easement agreement would work if approved.
Yeah, yeah.
Subject to a final, I
Yeah.
need people to go spend a fortune on lawyers. but-
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, but they could even say something like you just said, like we'll provide an easement for, public access along the trails.
Yep.
And here's a map that shows how that would look. you know.
All right. And the eligibility criteria we have on there, right, so everyone is very, very clear about that.
Yep.
Should we, does that link to it, Dan? The eligibility?
Yeah, that links to you guys. The CPC both has a web page on that, and on that web page is a link to a more
Got it.
in-depth explanation too. So
Got it.
pretty thorough.
Okay. All right. And I apologize, I realize I think I've just been yelling all meeting because I think I'm yelling at the TV, not into my microphone, so I apologize to
Everyone's turned their
to
volume
the
down.
three people watching at home, I apologize.
Who needs an ask?
All right, anything else on the application?
No, as part of this whole process, I assume this website that you're linking to, Dan, is going to be updated as well?
Yep. Yep.
Yep. Okay. I don't know if we need to make a motion on this. I think it's just more clerical than anything else. Unless anyone feels differently.
No.
Okay. All right. That's everything we had tonight, folks. Can I get a motion?
Make a move to End this meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Been a
Thank you,
while.
Tim.
Yeah.
So I have a second?
Second.
Second by
Second.
Rick. All those in favor, we'll do just a voice vote.
Aye.
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 I call it unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.